I'm here. Why is that so loud? That's like incredibly loud, isn't it? I feel like I'm like really, and I didn't change anything. Uh, what's going on here? Let's check the audio mixer. That does seem loud. I clearly have adjusted something. Allow me to slide that puppy back down to a normal, acceptable level. That's not doing anything. That means I have to change it up here. Okay, let's change that puppy down to an acceptable, normal, not blowing out your eardrums level. Okay, that looks better. How's it look over here? Okay, yeah, that's much better there. Right. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. And by the way, I've got everything wrong on this one here. This is the image you're supposed to be seeing right now. Oh my goodness! Hi. Welcome, everyone, to another taping of Podcast Pontifications. I still think that's hot. I still think that's going out too stinking loud. So I'm going to do some more adjusting so I don't blow. That's much better. All right. Well, you know, I don't think that did much of anything. Here we go. Okay. I think that's the level that I want. My apologies for all this stuff. But hey, it's the behind-the-scenes stuff of Podcast Pontifications. You guys should know that. That's how it works. Oh, I know what. I need to adjust this up there. Okay, that's better. That's good. Are we over here? Are we good? Yeah, this behind-the-scenes stuff never makes it beyond the scenes, which you and I are behind right now. Yeah, that's why we do it. Why we do it this way. How are we looking over here? How are we looking? Good morning, Arlen Amber. Nice to see you, sir. Pleasure to have you here with me on this fine Thursday morning. Hey, today on the program, now that I've got all of that stuff figured out, I think I got it figured out, we're going to be talking about 5 things I think that you should really seriously consider before joining a podcast network. I've talked about networks before on the program, but now we're going to talk about them even in greater detail. And how bad's this cold sore? Yeah, it's pretty nasty, isn't it? Sorry about that. But what are you going to do? You know, it's healing. It's life. You deal, you know. What are you going to do? I could say somebody punched me in the face repeatedly, but that's not what happened. It's just, you know, these things happen. These things happen, so hopefully it'll be going away. Luckily, it didn't cause me much pain. Anyhow, I hope you're well. I hope you're great. I don't know if you guys have had experience joining networks. This whole conversation, well, I shouldn't. Let me back up. Let me first off get. I'm confused with where things are. Aha, there's what I was looking for. Good morning, Andrew. So the reason I decided to talk about podcast networks today is it's a perennial conversation. I've had it a lot, but not long ago, in the advancing podcasting community, which I believe, well, I know that Andrew's a member of that. I think Arlen's a member. Advancingpodcasting.xyz. If you are out there watching this thing live, we have lots of conversations, not just about podcast pontifications, which is why I didn't want to call the community podcast pontifications. I called it Advancing Podcasting for a reason. We're in there trying to advance podcasting, make all of podcasting better. Anyhow, a week or so ago, someone asked a question about networks. What are kind of some, I believe their specific question was, what are some deal breakers? And so I collated my thoughts around it and published them on the community. And now I'm going to bring them forward and talk a little bit more about it. So see, being a part of the network, being a part of the community will help. So join it, advancingpodcasting.xyz. Okay, one thing I didn't do was, hey, Google, set the temperature to 25. One more time. Hey, Google, set the temperature to 25.
All right.
Hey, she got it. Awesome. All right, so now that one, the AC will not kick on, and I will not be disappointed when that happens. Okay. So, like I was saying, if you are, well, I don't think I did say this whatsoever. If you're watching this wondering what the hell's going on, this is a podcast. Actually, no, this is the behind the scenes stuff. The podcast is starting in about 30 seconds. So this has all just been preamble. You could have skipped all of this and just gone to podcastpontifications.com, where this will all be posted with all of this stuff cut up in about 3 hours. So, all right, but I think you guys understand that anyhow. All right, let's just double check. Where are we? Are we good on all the things? That's working. That's all great. If you have comments for me, feel free to throw them in there. I will see them when I get done with the recording sessions I'm about to do right now. But First thing I got to do is slam this little thing over to the side so that it's closer to where my camera is, and read to you the cold open. As interest in podcasting heats up, networks new and old are reaching out to podcasters to make it a group effort. Joining a network may be right for your podcast. Joining a network may be right for your podcast, but consider these 5 must-haves before you sign. One more time on the read of that, because that was weird. As interest in podcasting heats as interest in podcasting heats up, networks new and old are reaching out to podcasters to make it a group effort. Joining a network may be right for your podcast, but consider these 5 must-haves before you sign. See, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, here we go. As interest in podcasting heats up, networks new and old are reaching out to podcasters to make it a group effort. Joining a network may be right for your podcast, but consider these 5 must-haves before you sign. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. I'm hot and cold on podcast networks. I know how powerful they can be and what benefits they can bring to their member podcasters. But I also know the other side of that, how they can be mismanaged, and how member podcasters can be screwed over when things go south. In my tenure, I've started and managed 2 moderately successful podcast networks over the 17 years I've been in the podcasting game. Both were extremely early. One of those was extremely weird, but nonetheless, I learned a few things. And since that time, I've done some consulting with others who have networks on a wide range of services, pitfalls to avoid, to managing operations of the network, and even go-to-market strategies. Now, none of that really makes me an expert on podcast networks. That's how different podcast networks are. They all behave vastly differently, set with different goals and objectives. However, that experience has given me some core beliefs around podcast networks, and I'd like to pass those down to you as I've coalesced them into 5 things you should consider before joining a podcast network, whether that podcast network is big or small. 1, you need the ability to walk away. Now, keeping a podcast network viable is a team effort. Not just you, the podcaster, not just them, the network, but also all the other shows in the network. You know, joining a network is kind of like joining a company as an employee, and that you have to trust the other people within the organization that they're doing what they need to do to keep the organization a going concern. Because it takes care and feeding to keep the network alive. You have to grow the network. You've got to stay on top of new developments. There's a lot into making the network itself viable. It can't just live on the shoulders of the podcasts that are part of the network. And if that overall organization is not working, you need to be able to walk away. I mean, you must fulfill your commitments and obligations, obviously, if you're doing something that you've signed to contractually, you've said you will do these things. Yeah. You need to do that. But there needs to be a way for you to walk away from the network. You should be able to part as friends with acceptable out clauses when things just aren't working or it's just not a good fit. Number 2, ownership of content. When you walk away, you need to be able to own all of your content. The content you made before you joined the network that is now hosted on the network's web service, perhaps, but also the content you made while you were part of that network. Now, again, the network might have some ownership of content you made during your time on the network itself that might have been part of the deal. Great, so definitely want to work that out. One thing to look at in your contract is to make sure there will be no surprises off of either parties when that happens to make sure you get what you need. Now, along with that idea of owning what you had is continuity for your audience. You remember, the idea of a network is to bring you more people. Yes, I get that, but you brought your own people to the network most likely. So when you decide to leave that network, you will want to move your files from that network's servers and onto your own or someone else's. Now, that's the easy part, by the way. I mean, there's no complication in moving podcast hosts from one to another, and it's not that much more difficult. Really, it's not any more difficult to move your podcast from one network to another, because it's the same kind of process. But the network needs to make this easy for you. They need to be able to put in a 301 redirect on their side. That's not only to your feed, by the way, but also any pages. If you've been driving traffic to a different web page somewhere, all that needs to be done. All the redirecting needs to happen. And they need to pledge to keep that in place for, let's say forever. Because honestly, once you set up those redirects, you shouldn't have to monitor and manage them any longer. It's not like it costs them anything. Don't let anybody tell you it costs money to maintain 301 redirects. That's not true at any level. And the last thing that you need, actually, that was the third thing. The fourth thing that you need is a minimum monthly guarantee. Look, if one of the reasons you joined this network is to a promise of income made from network-level advertising, then the network who's selling the advertising needs to put their money where their mouth is and tell you what a minimum level income you will get. Now, I don't care if it's a token amount or they really are pushing for a really big number. You probably should care what that number is, because it's not your fault if the network hires an ad person who is crappy at their job. Look, I get that pandemics and global recessions happen. That sucks for everyone. But that's the risk of running a network that is built on the premise of bringing revenue to podcasters. It's up to them to make sure they keep bringing the money in. Last thing is a revenue share of the network. Remember that the network is going to take a piece of the action for every ad deal they sell for your podcast and every other podcast on that network. I've seen that percentage going to the network be 50%. I've seen it as small as 5%. Doesn't matter, because as the network grows, the total amount of income flowing into the network itself will increase. And yes, costs do increase for the network as they bring on new shows. That's life, that's business. But over time, the pool of money going into the network should in fact increase. And I think you want a piece of that action. I know I would want a piece of that action. I think every single show on that network should get a piece of the action overall, not just what happens on their show, but the network overall. Now, structuring this can be complicated. I like to think of it just as a bonus pool, right? Kind of like you would have at most employers where, okay, this is the residual money left over after we've paid for things. A portion of that goes out to each of the podcast allocated by, I don't really care, downloads, impressions, you name it. Doesn't matter to me. So long as when the network prospers overall, every show, including your show on that network, profits and prospers overall. So there's my ideas on networking. I don't have any boostograms for you to talk about, for me to talk about with the show on you today. There were no reviews or new coffee supporters since yesterday. You can fix that, by the way, by hitting the boost button on your fancy newfangled podcast listening app that supports boosting. You can also say nice things about podcast pontifications on whatever app or directory that takes reviews that you like to use. Or just go to podcastpontifications.com/support. Yes, I did set that up. Podcastpontifications.com/support to get some options on how you can provide value to me for the value I give to you with these insightful episodes 4 days a week. There will be no episodes on Friday because I like to keep the Friday sacred. So with that, I shall be back on Monday with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers. Stop the recording there. Stop the recording there. There you go. 5 things about networks think I got 5 things in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I did have 5. You always got to check myself. Hey, if you were just now tuning in, you missed it. You could back up 15 minutes and 7 seconds and listen to the entire live stream from the beginning, but the first 4 minutes was me kind of fumbling around, just getting my voice ready, which still wasn't ready at the end. You could, at this point in time, just go to podcastpontifications.com, because that's where, in a little more than 2 hours and 45 minutes, 2 hours and 46 minutes to be exact, I will have posted the finalized audio version of this. You will also see a completely rewritten article. I will take every word that tumbled forth from my face and rearrange it with my fingers and brains to make something you would mind reading. All that's available 10 o'clock in the morning. Go to podcastpontifications.com and click the subscribe button. Give us your email address, and you will get those things emailed to you. Not just a link. Well, a link to the audio file, because that's how audio files work. But the actual article that I write, all 1,500 words or so, will be there for your enjoyment right there in your email. Easy for you to go, ooh, I see what he's saying. And more importantly, well, not necessarily more importantly, but also you could say forward to a friend who's thinking about joining a network. Great episode to share it with them. Let's check the chats. Andrew says timely stuff, actually. Ooh, I'm curious what's going on over there, Andrew. Keep me posted, and yeah, I like to keep posted on what my peoples are doing. So I appreciate your attentions. I have a few things I have to get accomplished today, so I'm going to go get those things done. Happy rest of your day. Enjoy Friday, then the weekend. See you on Monday.